I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Mary Kissel, my colleague and co-host of Opinion Journal at WSJ.com. She is the host each day at 1 p.m. East Coast time, as well as a member of the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. And we're joined by Liz Peek of the Fiscal Times, because we turn to now the two speeches and presentations by the President of the United States over these last weeks. You saw the President go to Illinois and make a speech. You saw the President go to Tennessee and make a speech. Both those speeches had different parts of the White House's understanding of the economy, the pivot to the economy. Liz, a very good evening to you. The speeches I do not combine easily, so I'll begin with the most recent. The President is talking about tax reform, corporate tax reform. 28% for Mary, right numbers, 28% for all businesses, 25% for manufacturing businesses. And
for small businesses.
For small businesses, not so much.
Yeah,
not so much, because they mostly file individual personal income taxes.
Not a great deal for those
Not
people.
so much. Okay, so we're going to stay with the big employers, plus 50, all right. Liz, what's wrong with the corporate tax presented by the President? Why is that not a good idea the Republicans are rushing out to embrace? Good evening to you, Liz.
Good evening. I'm so glad to be with you. Well, once again, it's a sort of bait and switch from the Obama administration. Yes, there is talk about bringing the corporate rate lower. We now have, I think, actually still have the second highest rate amongst developed countries. So this is something that pretty much everybody is on board with. But it is meant to be a revenue neutral approach, and it's pretty clear from what the President proposed that is not his take on this. And so naturally, Republicans just immediately bailed on what had been a bipartisan effort. And by the way, Mary probably knows more about this than I do, but I've heard there's really great progress being made on tax reform, with an idea towards not only lowering the corporate rate, but simplifying our tax code, which is now hideously complicated and has ins and outs for every possible company and district and everything else. It's ridiculously complicated, and I think one idea is just to simplify it. So, the simplification, however, was not meant to sort of create a slush fund for President Obama, which is kind of what he is looking for.
Yeah, Liz, that was my favorite part of that speech. Please let me keep your taxes really high, eliminate deductions, and I'll take the money and spend it on programs that I really like and that don't create any jobs. I mean, it's amazing to me. Liz, look, I'm trying to see the sunny side of this speech. It's hard, but I've tried. I mean, is it at least progress that the President is acknowledging that the corporate tax rate, the highest tax rate in the world, is too high? Isn't that good?
Yes, it is. But he has said that in past occasions. But I think the gist of this was there is no tax relief in sight for our businesses. I mean, really, from stage one of this administration, there has never been a sense that we could propel growth and therefore put people back to work by reducing income taxes for the corporate sector or for individuals. That's just not been on the table at all. And I think, again, I think what's so dispiriting here is there really has been a very solid effort by Republicans and Democrats, from what I understand, to move forward towards the kind of tax reform that, has been talked about now really for a decade at least. And he just kind of blew it up. I mean, this is like him walking into the immigration debate, and everyone knew that was completely toxic, or gun control or whatever, and he did it again.
Maytag. Maytag is not a name you hear much in economic councils, because it's a 20th century technology, and a Maytag plant in Galesburg, Illinois, closed in 2004. Sounds like a done deal. However, the President of the United States is showing strong indications that he's obsessed with Maytag. In 2005, the President traveled to Galesburg, Illinois, to make a speech to a graduating class and mentioned how the Maytag plant shut down the year before. The President was a freshman senator. All the jobs had gone to Mexico. He didn't quite mention why that was true. He then talked about retraining and also pensions and health care that the retrained Maytag workers could take with them anywhere to start small businesses. And he mentioned such as, building electric cars at the plant, or inventing a new cancer technology that would renovate the world. All of this was 2005. The President made exactly the same speech in Galesburg, Illinois in 2013. Now, setting aside psychology, we're not going to do that. Liz, what the heck is going on? Maytag,
the washing machine is that where we come out? I think, I guess, number one, it's his own backyard. He's an Illinois guy, so this was probably, having Maytag move was kind of probably a pretty big deal. And the problem is no one wants to take ownership of the policies that have led these companies to flee states like Illinois. Illinois is one of the worst states for businesses in the country, which is, by the way, why their unemployment is higher than the national average, and their budget is a complete disaster. But leaving that aside for the moment, no one really wants to tackle the issue of union wages, which is what they were paying in this town, and the fact that they simply couldn't compete. I mean, this is the kind of hard goods manufacturing that is, that is facing gale force winds from around the world from cheaper labor markets. And you can't compete in Galesburg, Illinois with high labor rates. That's just, and the only time this really kind of became part of the national conversation was when the auto companies were in real trouble. And then everyone in the United States began to read about the benefits and the salaries, and they began to understand why Detroit was in trouble. Well, guess what? I mean, on the smaller scale, it's the same thing here. We are, in fact, seeing a manufacturing renaissance in this country by dint of lower energy prices around the world. People looking at the United States and saying, gosh, in Europe, I think energy prices are 4 or 5 times higher for certain types of facilities now than they are here. But they're sure not going to go to Illinois. They're going to go to states where they can have non-union plants and operate in a competitive manner. This is just not something we talk about.
But Liz, why this obsession with making stuff? I mean, how is it that the president can pick an industry and say, I think that we should make electric cars. Let's use taxpayer money and put that money into companies like Tesla, regardless of whether or not they work, because we have to make stuff. Is that an outdated notion, or does he actually have a point that we need to have a solid manufacturing base here? Well,
I think there are economists who would tell you, yes, we do have to have a manufacturing infrastructure in this country, but of course what that also brings is pretty high wage jobs historically, union jobs, and let's not forget that unions are very much the backers of this president, so they are very keen to see those kinds of jobs come back. And so I'm sort of sympathetic that, in fact, that is a reasonable aspiration, but the problem is actually it is not just wages, it's also legislation and labor laws that have led us to be pretty uncompetitive as we employ union employees. We just can't compete, with China or Taiwan or any of these countries. So it's a difficult thing, and I think honestly the president has just this unbelievably naive picture in his head of how all of this is going to work. That we're all going to decide that electric cars are worthwhile. The government's going to finance them, and we will make a whole bunch of them. The problem is, he forgot the fact that the consumer needs to buy them, and so far that just hasn't happened.
Energy. The president is walking around energy. He talks about electric cars. He also, in that Galesburg speech in 2005, for some reason I've read it recently, he talked about ethanol, corn into fuels, more subsidy programs. The president talked about biotechnology. The president talked about dreaming big dreams. Let's dream together. What the president's wondering around is innovation, R&D, developing a new technology that recreates the American growth model. We've got it. It's here. Mr. President, your staff, it's called hydrofracking. It works.
Right.
The energy revolution of the years since your 2005 speech has made the price of natural gas in this country continuing to decline. $4 per British thermal unit in the U.S. versus $10 in Europe versus $14 in Asia. We've got so much natural gas.
They're flaming it, John. They're getting rid of the extras.
We're building LNG export start ports in Louisiana and Texas to sell it overseas. Liz, I give you all these details because it's right in front of Mr. Obama. The big dream of 2005 is there. And is he blind to it? Is it the Democratic Party captured by the regulators? Is it a handful of green environmentalists who have just stormed the White House? Who is it, Liz?
Well, I think it is a sop to the environmental environmental industry, if you will. And it's not a handful. This is a huge, billion dollar industry, the environmental lobby right now. And, he has had tremendous backing from them. So the idea that hydrocarbons are still going to play a very powerful role in our energy mix doesn't work with his sort of mindset that the government can dictate lower carbon fuels such as energy, sun and wind, and that the government can play a very heavy hand in this. Really, at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is a president who does not believe at all in the market regulating commerce or, making sense of our economic progress. And the truth is, as you point out, John, this emergence of natural gas supply as being almost now like 100-year supply in the United States, and with the consequence of driving prices down, that is just not something Obama can take ownership of. So honestly, I think he just doesn't have any interest in it. He doesn't have any ownership of it. So
doesn't have ownership, but Liz, he takes credit for it.
Oh yeah, I know.
Every
but
other speech,
It's right in front of him. It doesn't require any subsidy.
I know, but he takes credit for it. Look at this great energy
and
movement
Keystone
we have.
XL pipeline. It's a small piece of the larger story of not only energy independence, but the ability to transform North America into the
Saudi
intellectual
Arabia.
property basis of the rest of the planet. Everybody wants our technology.
I was thinking today, really, the United States should be celebrating. We should be celebrating.
Well, we are.
This is such a huge thing. And, that's why I'm so provoked by him constantly banging away on how miserable everyone should be because the middle class isn't doing well. Well, the middle class is prospering in the sense that the lower cost of energy is sort of trickling through the economy. The middle class has prospered from the fact that the price of goods and services in this country is way lower than it would have been without globalization and so forth. In any case, there's all kinds of data points to prove that the middle class is not really so bad off right now. And the only thing that's sort of holding back the middle class and the country as a whole is that we are not putting all our efforts into creating jobs and growth. And that has been gone, for, 4 years.
Liz Peek of Fiscal Time. She's a columnist. Mary Kissel, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal and the host of Opinion Journal each day at WSJ.com at 1 p.m. live, and then it rebroadcasts all the time. You can get it on video right now. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.